Hello, my dears. You are listening and maybe watching the second episode of Keeping Kith, Field Notes from the Prairie. Now, the idea behind this podcast / what I don't even know what to call it, listening practice, was to go out onto the prairie and share little bits of our life here with you in an effort to sort of introduce you to my more than human neighbors. So that includes weather, grass, the different animals under our care. So I was going to come out today and sit by where the pasture that the horses are in. And if you happen to be watching, then you can see them in the distance. But I'll just say they're the pasture that I am now parked beside is I'm not going to try to go out and walk to the horses, because in the time between when I left the house to come to this pasture, we're having like a little funny sideways blizzard event. And there's snow. There's also a lot of just, I don't know, stuff flying from the neighbor's field. And I was going to walk out, but instead I'm just sitting in my car because I drove to this part of the ranch. I was in town and I just drove out, and yeah, that's how fast the weather changed. And the wind is just epic right now. So I'm gonna open up the door for 1 second so you can hear what the wind sounds like. I think you can probably hear it even when I'm inside the car, but I'll just so you can hear it. Now that's an unusually lot of wind, even for here where we're used to a lot of wind. And it's interesting because if you listen to my first episode last week, then you know that I have developed a relationship with the wind over the last, well, I guess 15 years since moving here. When I first got here, I had lived in the Midwest for a fair part of my life, so I thought I knew about wind. I mean, one of those places being Minnesota, which is a windy place too. So I thought I kind of knew about wind, but I was totally unprepared for what wind is like here, because it, as I said last week as well, I mean, we get gale-force winds. We get Category 1 hurricane levels of wind just as a thing that happens, and not even, again, from a storm necessarily, but from the fact that that's just the climate we have, I guess, and that there isn't a lot for it to run into. That's the nature of living on the plains, I think. And because it's where we live here on the shortgrass prairie, it's very dry. So not being a meteorologist, I can't speak on this, but I think that is part of it too. There's just not very much moisture in the air. And I think that results in us having just very different weather than places where it's maybe more humid. So anyway, you can see, if you're watching, again, there's our horses out there. And this is, again, part of, we're going to see where this Keeping Kith idea takes us, and what ends up being sort of useful that comes out of this. Because I do hope part of it will be kind of an encouragement to you to keep kith with your own neighbors, whoever and wherever they may be. But because I happen to be here, so this is where I'm doing it, I do think this place is really interesting because it is a land of such extremes. the shortgrass prairie is. We have some of the record high temperatures in the contiguous United States and some of the record low temperatures in the contiguous United States. In here, we also have incredible variability when it comes to moisture. So our average is about 13 inches of rain a year, which obviously is near desert conditions, but that's, there will be years where we have a rain event where we'll get 13 inches. And so it's a place, again, of extremes, and it's also a place, therefore, that has sort of an incredible resilience, sort of that just is part of the ecosystem, because anything that grows or lives here has to have very deep roots to withstand the wind, to withstand the drought, but then also has to be able to soak in a bunch of rain when it does come. And I think that with the animals too. It always amazes me. Well, when I first moved here and I saw horses just sort of out in a pasture, I grew up thinking horses lived in stables, that horses should be in barns. And I was kind of horrified by what to me looked like animal endangerment. And it slowly, I had this awakening of just, again, spending time here, spending time around the animals, and like realizing that these horses have the most amazing life because they get to be together, hanging out, enjoying like the freedom of movement. They run when they want to run. They do what they're doing right now, which is hang out by the windbreak, and some of them aren't even. I mean, this is crazy wind. Like, we're getting gusts up to, I think they said maybe 60 or 70 miles an hour today. So, and some of those folks are just hanging out. Again, if you can see it, if you're watching, you can see, but otherwise there's a small group of the horses is standing behind a tin windbreak, and the rest are just kind of like out in the middle of the pasture, grazing, heads down, and also just kind of standing, just with their friends. This is another sort of side note, but something I get a real kick out of that makes perfect sense, but wouldn't have been obvious to me before moving here, which is that horses totally have friends. They have the other horses they like to hang out with, and then they have ones that they don't like to hang out with, or they get in fights with, and that can, it's just, I mean, it's just the same, I guess, as a group of people. So that's another thing, when a horse doesn't live in a stable and isn't sort of confined to its own little cubicle, they get to decide who they're going to hang out with and who they want to stand at a distance from, and they mingle, and then they go off on their own and maybe stand, off to the side if they need a little time to themselves. So, it's a very different thing to be a horse that gets to be out in a pasture with the other horses. But it also means that you are, you're out in the elements. So, again, there's an interesting, this is a topic I could talk a lot about. There's an interesting responsibility that you have then as sort of like the human that determines where the animals are going to be, when you have that kind of like jurisdiction. Because if we bring them in, obviously they get to be in a warmer situation, which is nice in some ways, but then they have a lot less freedom to move. So I think about it more with my sheep, and again, how best to keep them safe. We worry less about the horses. Horses, we don't have to worry about predation with horses, and they're just pretty tough relative to other types of livestock, including sheep. And so it's not super cold today, but when it is, again, you feel like, oh, we should bring them in. But then when you go out and you see that there is actual snow on their backs, which looks sort of awful when you're watching it, or for me, when I first saw that, I was like, oh no, look, they've got snow, like that must be so cold. And then I realized if the snow isn't melting, like that's how well insulated they are by their winter fur or winter hair, which again, if they're outside and they grow in that winter coat. Like, it keeps them very warm. And it is one of our jokes that kind of like, you have a horse out in the pasture and you bring them in the spring, and that is like sort of the chubbiest they'll ever be, because they just kind of hang out and eat. They really do not seem to be adversely affected by cold in the way that, a human being would be. So, although that being said, again, I'm thinking back to the theme of this show, Keeping Kith. I think another thing I would like to come out of it is the sense that we have a lot to learn from our other than human neighbors. And for me, the kind of resilience that I have seen in my animal neighbors reminds me often that my body is more resilient than I've sort of been led to believe, and that living in climate controlled environments all the time, the cold feels a lot worse when you're not used to being out in the cold. But the more that I am going out to do chores or have things that I need to do outdoors, and then just kind of get used to the cold, and then you don't like brace against it in the same way, maybe, I don't know, but it just, being out in the cold doesn't scare me the way it did, I think, when I was more used to being inside when it was cold. So that's something I for sure learned from the prairie and from hanging out with animals like horses, who are able to, I'm actually watching, some of my dogs are running by too. We've got a Great Pyrenees, which, if you've ever seen one of those, she's a livestock guard dog, and she's one of those big white dogs that look kind of like part dog, part polar bear. And she's a perfect example of this. Like, she will take a snowbank over a spot by the fire any day of the week, because she gets overheated very easily. She'd much rather be out in the wind and weather doing her job guarding than coming inside, unless it's really, really, like, unless we're talking like -20 or something. She's pretty unbothered by the cold. So I just think we have we are animals too, and our bodies are a lot more resilient than we sometimes realize. And finding that capacity within ourselves is a gift that I have gotten from living here. So maybe I'll leave it at that for now. This has been a really hard week. I guess I'm not going to leave it there, because I am going to say a few more things. This has been a really hard week. I'm from, as I just said, I am from Minnesota, or I lived in Minnesota, went to high school there, lived there after graduating from college. It's where a lot of my family and friends still live. It's, when I say I'm going home, that's the place I say I'm going home to. And I have just been absolutely devastated by everything that's happening there. And big picture, I'm devastated, and small picture, I'm devastated, as in, like, literally dear friends and family, what they are experiencing is just, it's just awful. It's really awful. And if you don't know about it, I really encourage you to, reach out to me, actually. I was going to say, do your own research, but don't, because maybe at this point in human history, we actually need to just be talking to other humans that we know in real life, or that we know, that we have a real relationship with, because it is hard to know what's really happening anywhere with the amount of misinformation that we all now have access to. Oh, I'm watching two of the horses were just in a little fight. Oh, now they're moving in that. There was it was two of the older ones, Ravi and Moondog, and who I actually know are friends, but they, I think that they're both kind of up in the hierarchy of, like, of the horse hierarchy. Here, I'm trying to remember what you call a group of horses. Is it a herd? I feel like there should be another name for horses, but I think it's herd. Anyway, I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up, but I think they are sort of on the leadership committee. Ravi and Moondog are, so maybe they're having a disagreement about how best to lead, which also feels relevant to what I'm talking about. But anyway, yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's a crazy, crazy time to be humaning. That's the best I can say about that. But if you follow me on social media, you've already heard all this, which is that I think maybe we're always at the moment where we have to make some decisions about how we want to show up in the world. And I know, I have no doubt in my mind, I know that the way I want to show up in the world is with love and compassion, and with an eye toward mutual thriving, and with an understanding that how to be living in community is not obvious, especially not right now. I think a lot of us have lost the skill of how to live in community, and building that back again is part of what I want to figure out with Keeping Kith, and what I want to share with you, both the wisdom that I've garnered from my life here in the prairie, and the questions I am still trying to answer. But in the meantime, I love you so much, Minneapolis, and I'm really sorry. And yeah, I think it's on all of us to keep asking those hard questions. And again, if you want to know more about what I am experiencing as a person who personally knows people in Minnesota, please do reach out. I'd be happy to talk with you more. In the meantime, I hope you take this as an invitation to go out, go meet some of your own kith, whether that's just stepping out your door to hear if there's any birds having a chat in the trees by your house. If it's too cold for birds, it might just be the wind talking to the trees. Or maybe you do have a human neighbor that's walking past that you can say hi and strike up a conversation with. Because I promise there is a neighbor that wants to meet you and will be excited to see you if you do decide to go out. So, goodbye till next week.